Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey, everybody. I am so excited to introduce my guest today, Dr. Bob Nelson. Dr. Bob is considered the leading advocate for employee recognition and engagement worldwide. He has worked with 80% of the Fortune 500 and presented on 6 continents. He has been featured extensively in the national and international media, including the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, CNN, CBS 60 Minutes, MSNBC, ABC, PBS, and NPR about how to best motivate today's employees. Boy, is that important. Dr. Bob has sold over 5 million books, including 1,501 Ways to Reward Employees, the 1,001 Rewards and Recognition Fieldbook, 1,001 Ways to Energize Employees, the Management Bible, 1,001 Ways to Engage Employees, and his latest book, Work Made Fun Gets Done, Easy Ways to Boost Energy, Morale, and Results. Please help me in welcoming the guru of thank you, Dr. Bob Nelson.
Thank you so much, Tammy.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited to have you here today.
Me as well.
Dr. Bob, here we are on Work from the Inside Out. And as you know, we love to start at the beginning. Tell us, before you were even Dr. Bob, tell us about some of the earlier years, the formative years. Perhaps it was, your childhood or a little later, or influences. We all started somewhere, something that happened to us earlier, or we learned something that influenced the path we began on. We'd love to hear about that.
Well, where would I start on that? I think, Mark Twain says there's 2 most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you figure out why. And
there you go.
I'm not sure if I figured out why, but I remember I was in the 6th grade. I was living in France, and January 7th, they have a day of the kings. Supposedly that's when the 3 kings arrived in Jerusalem. And so it's like a national holiday in France. And they do a thing with a cake, and one piece of cake has a stone in it, and that person's king or queen for the day. And I got that, and I was like, oh, all of a sudden I was king for the day. It felt
wow,
kind of special, and that had, I don't know, I think that had an impact on me to feel, you got to feel special in what you're doing, not necessarily better than other people, but just you're doing things that are important, and that you have the opportunity to do that, and you're trying to make the most of the opportunity. So I felt I've always had a really strong work ethic, and I've had people tell me that I'm very, very determined, which I've had people tell me that alone will make you successful because you don't give up,
Right.
And I tend to be very resourceful. So those are attributes that have served me well, and so I always felt that I'd have speaking in my background. I'm a introvert at heart, so that being a speaker does not come easy to introverts. And so even knowing that, I kind of knew that I would need to be a speaker to achieve some of the things I want to do in life. And I knew I could be a writer early on. I had in high school, I remember an English teacher passing out papers, and she stopped at my desk and she waved it above her head, said, "Best paper I had in 5 classes." And I'm like,
wow,
that's kind of surprised, a little embarrassed, and took the paper and reread it. What did she see here that, I knew I had a knack there somehow, a gift. And now I've done 31 books. And
yeah, there you go.
Which is also a very hard thing to do, as you know, that it's, but it can be very rewarding. And then, but doing a best-selling book, that became a different goal for me. And so when I had the idea for a book based on my doctoral dissertation, I went about it differently. In fact, when I had the idea for the book in a graduate school class, Testament to Education, I drove, I was like an hour and a half from where I live. I drove home that night and I typed out a letter to a president of a publisher in New York City who I had briefly met once at a book fair, and then tried to get him on the phone, which was not very easy. And then finally I could hear his assistant say, "Would you talk to this guy? He keeps calling." And someone grabs the phone and "What do you want?" I said, "Hi, my name's Bob Nelson, and I sent you a letter about a book." And he cut me off because, "You sent us a letter. There's no way we're going to respond to that. If there's a book that you really feel you really want to do, you guys send us a proposal on the book idea and why it's got to be one of in that year, 70,000 books that are published this year, and why we're the only publisher that could possibly get it right." And as he's hanging up, he says, "By the way, we get 10,000 proposals a year. We publish 24 books." Click.
Whoa.
And I said, "Game on." I guess I could have said, "Oh, well, I tried." But I said, "Nah, game on. I could do a proposal." And I did a proposal. And then next time I communicated with him, it was face to face. I flew to New York at my own expense, and I did a proposal. I sent it to him, and he was Peter Workman Publishing. He was a very visual person. Mm-hmm. And he only signed up books that he could see, visualize this could do it. And on my proposal, he opened, and I laid out a few pages. He opened to that portion. He said, "This could work. This could work." And I said, "Doesn't mean he's sold yet, but this could work." And then so he knows about the project. Now he's not sure about me. He goes, "So tell me about yourself." And well, I'm working as an administrator in a company, in a training company, but that's not really what I want to do. And he goes, "Oh, well, what do you really want to do?" I said, "Be a best-selling author." And I could just see a twinkle in his eye, click, and done deal. And so.
Did you know anything about him before you met with? Did you know that he was a visual person? Did you have any intel to know that you had
I knew about the publisher. I knew that they were a very, very strong marketing publisher, because most publishers are not. And I knew that they had a very aggressive marketing, and I knew that was important. And so even knowing that, and they accepted it, I didn't say, "Well, okay, now I'm set. I can kick back." I remember talking to the marketing director. I said, "Hey, wow, I'm really excited about this book. Do you have a marketing plan for the book?" And she kind of laughed, because, "Well, we really don't do that, a specific plan for each book." But I go, "Well, I got a few ideas. You mind if I send them to you?" "Oh, that would be cute. Yeah, please." So I sent them, honestly, I sent them a 60-page document, single-spaced, with a one-line cover letter. It says, "This is what I'm going to do to make this book a success. What are you going to do to meet me halfway?"
Wow.
And years later, they said, they looked at each other and said, "What have we unleashed?" and that's, I dug in. So that was my epiphany. You can't expect someone else to do it all for you. You got to make it happen, and then hope that they'll do something. Something, ideally meet you halfway. But and then hey, suddenly the speaking kicked in. I did. I started doing talks. I didn't charge for speaking. I did probably 70 talks for free before I charged anyone, and that got me in shape to do speaking, and have done it ever since. I've since had years where I've made over $1 million speaking. So that 70 free talks was a good investment.
It paid off. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So when you, I'm just going to roll back the tape just a little bit. Just
Okay.
curious where this began a little bit in terms of. So it sounds like you, in the earlier years, you held a number of different jobs that just were jobs. It sounds like, but did you start off wanting to write? Is that where you kind of laid the tracks, so to speak?
It's interesting because I think there's like with speaking, I knew that writing would be in my future. I didn't know quite what or how, but when I got my MBA from Berkeley, and my fiance wasn't finished with her studies at the University of Minnesota, and so I came back to town in St. Paul, and she had 6 months to go, and I said, well, okay, well, if I've got time to do anything I want, what would I most like to do? And I said, well, I'd like to work at a bookstore. And so I applied at a bookstore, and they had my application. They said, you have an MBA and you've done some other books, and they basically laughed me out of the store. They go, because they didn't think I'd stay there.
Right.
So
right.
I go, no, I really want this job. I'm like, yeah, get out of here. So I applied to another store, B. Dalton in
B.
downtown.
Dalton. I remember B. Dalton.
Yeah. In St. Paul, Minnesota. And I didn't say I had an MBA, and I hope to be a writer someday. I kept it kind of loose. And so they hired me to be a shipping clerk. and I got $2.17 an hour.
Oh my goodness.
And I tell you, that was one of the best jobs I ever had.
Now, what I'm curious, what made you decide to do that?
Because I kind of had a thing for publishing, and every day was like Christmas. I got to open packages from publishers and get to see what the publishers were like and the quality of the books. And I could take home any book I wanted overnight, bring it back the next day and read it. So I just loved everything about it. And the regional manager was kind of around the corner in an open office, and I could hear his conversations on what he was working on. And so I learned quite a lot from that job.
Wow. So it's interesting. It's just, I think it's a very important lesson. A couple of things here that you're talking about that I think our listeners would really learn from this. And that is, I think people are so anxious, and rightfully so, about money and income and all that. But when you talk about, you've got this MBA and you're going and working as a shipping clerk in a bookstore, but all the other advantages and things that you learned as a result of being in that environment, or, giving 70 free talks in order to get your footing in building a speaking career, and how that has, definitely borne some fruit, let's say, right? And so to think about, but you had a vision. You had a vision through all of those experiences. It wasn't
an image. It was a fuzzy vision.
But you had a why. There was a why behind what you were doing, even though you didn't know how it was going to turn out exactly. There was a why behind it. It wasn't just, hey, I think I'll just get a job in a bookstore. You had a curiosity, you had an interest, and you kept your eyes and your ears wide open in the process. Well, and I think you knew if you wanted to go get an MBA type of job, you could have.
Yes, I did know that. And I got to tell you, part of the journey is learning to trust yourself and your own instincts. So it was, just like what you said, I was working, I had an internship out of college, and I got a job from that, and I was working at a computer company, and a recruiter, called me about a job at a bank, Wells Fargo, big bank, and I remember asking my older brother, I go, what do you think? Well, what's it pay? Well, it's 20% more than I'm making. Well, you definitely have to take it. You have to take it. It's 20. Really? Yeah, you have to take it. No, that's too big. You got to take that. And so I took that job. I was miserable.
Yeah.
I came home every Monday with this migraine headache, and there was all this office politics, and it was like I was just absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
And until I quit, eventually, to about a year, I stuck with it. But so it's important to know, to figure it out yourself and not just listen to other people as what job pays the most. I got a quote in the latest book here.
Yes.
Work made fun gets done.
Yes.
I think you'll like. It fits what we're saying.
Good.
Most people chase success at work, thinking it will make them happy. The truth is that happiness at work will make you successful. Alexander Scherhoff. I think there's something to that. I think there's a lot to that, actually.
Oh, I think there's a lot to that. And in my mind, there's everything to that. I mean, of course, there are always circumstances in certain people's lives where you just have to bring in some cash. But,
yeah, absolutely.
but barring that, you and I both know there are way too many people out there who are doing the migraine job.
Yeah, the job because it pays well and they can cover their expenses and live in the standard that they're used to. I think that most people, we need money to live, and
right.
And maybe initially when you take your first job, there's a bit of a struggle, a bit of you got student loans or whatever. But at the point you get to a point where you can cover your bills and
right.
still live a standard of living at which you're accustomed.
Right.
And at that point, I think it's worth it to have a different discussion to say, is this, now that I know I can do the work thing, is this really the work I want to do? Because if you just keep at it, there's a lot of people that work at a job until they hate it and hate their manager. You know that the average person spends 15% of their time at home complaining about their boss.
Right. There you go. Right.
Yeah, it's and I just think I feel bad about people that come to hate their job and their boss, and then they kind of hate their life, and bring that home, and and then they finally get fired or frustrated, they quit, and they go do it again, another job that they really don't like, but it's the best paid offer they got. And
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to dismiss the importance of being able to pay your bills, but gosh, if it could be something larger than that, I think it's, if you do what you really love, you'll get better at it, and you'll be paid better. Is what I've learned. I remember a motivation theory from psychology class in college. Clark Hall. He had this very simple theory, from the 50s that performance equals motivation times ability. Mm-hmm. Performance, and in a nutshell, it says so. It's both your ability, so it's important to know what you're good at, and then your motivation. What do you want to do, or what drives you? And the combination of those two things lead to better performance. So you can be terrible at piano, but if you have a lot of motivation to want to learn, you will get better at piano, and your performance will improve. So it's a simple equation, but I think it really rings true. So if you pay attention to things that you like doing, and you combine that with feedback from others on things you're good at, that's a pretty good formula to find out some potential career paths for you that you can make happen.
And I would add to that by saying, I would say in that order, because I think there's a lot of people out there who listened to people who told them, you're good at this, so you should, you're good at math, so you should be an accountant. And I've seen too many people who became that accountant, woke up one day and realized they hate accounting. And they just listened to everyone else, but they didn't listen to themselves or trust themselves, as you said. So it's got to be that blend, right, of both acknowledging what other people are saying to you, but then you got to check in with yourself as well.
That's
right?
That's the hard one. If you're not, you gotta train your ability to do that, because if you don't ever think about it, and then one day it hits you, then it's going to be perhaps a harder change than if you're constantly have it in the back of your mind. But if you're doing something you love, and there's a lot of people that take what was a hobby for them and turns it into found a way to make money from it.
Right.
And that could be, whether it's cooking or a hobby, something that you're doing for fun, you really enjoy. There might be a vocation in that task. And then, if you are good at what you enjoy and having fun with it, you'll never work a day in your life.
There you go, as quote they say, right? So you've done a lot of writing about all kinds of topics, but a lot of it relates to rewarding employees. Really, how to engage your employees, right? Employee engagement, and I think that's what we're talking about here. When you think about why do people leave jobs? Oftentimes they're not leaving a job, right? They're leaving a boss, they're leaving an organizational or corporate culture, right? So
usually the case, you got to work for a great company, you leave because of a bad boss.
And so a lot of your books, I think, point to the kinds of things that companies, managers, leaders need to be doing to create the right kind of environment. And so what is it that people can do, even be looking for? Let's say we're talking to an audience here of both people who want to either improve their work lives from a variety of vantage points, or they're looking for their next opportunity or trying to create that. What are some of the things that they can either create or look for?
My definition of engagement, employee engagement, is a merging of personal aspirations with company objectives. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's the manager that's the person that can best integrate that. So it's good to know what your employees want, and what, if they don't have goals, to help them form some, because you'll have more motivation if you have more purpose in what you're doing. If you're just showing up for a paycheck, it's never going to be more than that.
So I'm curious what your perspective is on what's going on in companies and organizations today, as things are shifting pretty dramatically to, all these hybrid arrangements and many, many more people working from home. And companies are still at this point trying to figure out what kinds of messages they want to be sending to their employees around, do you have to come in? Don't you have to come in? What days? Do we tell people what days? Do we give them a choice? And then how that impacts the overall culture of the organization. I think companies are still trying to figure out what the right thing is to do here, regardless of whether we have a virus or we don't have a virus in the air. But it does seem like people are really trying to navigate this territory, and
they are. It's the Wild West.
Very confusing.
It is, and I'd say, my bias and all that, and it's really currently it's an employee's market, so they're holding all the cards on, because most companies have a shortage of skilled labor, and at all levels up and down the food chain. So people that are in essential jobs that don't want to have their life at risk anymore, or not more highly trained technical people. But most jobs have moved in that direction of more technical type requirements to do it well. So there is a lot with that, and my advice is to wrap around what employees want as much as possible, while still getting a focus on performance. And here I just did book, Work Made Fun Gets Done. It's not fun over work, it's fun while we're working. So it's celebrating successes, or starting a Zoom call with activity to get to know each other better, or a praise barrage where you can take 5 minutes to go around the group, and as I call someone's name, I'd like everyone else to say what they most value about working with that person.
Right.
Well, that's a powerful exercise, a praise barrage. And for people to hear how others see them in a positive light is a very powerful feedback. And whatever you called out for them, they're going to do more of, because what gets recognized gets repeated. So you can actually harness the power of technology in new ways that people didn't think about maybe a year or so ago.
I also appreciated, the chapter where you talk about meetings and office communication, and you had a quote here: "No meeting is still better than a bad meeting." And I've always believed in that. I think there's that people ought to be more conscious about, why are we having this meeting, and what do we hope to get out of it?
We can definitely be more efficient with meetings, and or if you are doing them, at least allow us to build a stronger team in the process by doing some to learn to get to know each other better.
Right.
So you got to have an eye on building the team, even as you're having meetings.
Yeah. No, I agree. And what else I love about Work Made Fun Gets Done is the thing I really love about, well, there's a number of things I love about this book. First of all, it's chock full of ideas. So if
real ideas, real
ideas, things that other companies are already doing, things that work, it's very accessible. You could open up any page in this book and get a great idea of something to do.
And if that one doesn't work, turn the page.
Exactly. And I love the way it's laid out, because there are, really everything is laid out so well. You could almost open the book, close your eyes, and put your finger down. You'd come up with a good idea. And what I also love about this is, so for those of you listening who may be in the job market, if you're applying for a position, I don't care if it's an individual contributor or for a management role, this book would help you land the job, because you could dazzle somebody in an interview coming in and saying, here's how you would engage your coworkers or other employees or people reporting to you, because you'd come in with all kinds of fabulous ideas and sound like you're just going to come in and dazzle everybody.
I got to tell you, you're making me blush, but I've actually had people tell me they took a book of mine to an interview and they got the job based on that. They go, yes, do that here, you're hired.
Well, I think it's true. I think, and I would imagine that's true of most of your books, because these are proven and tried approaches to engaging people. And this is the crisis that it's not, I mean, I hate to sound dramatic, but this is the crisis that we're in. We've got people aren't feeling engaged. We've got about 60% of people claim not to feel engaged at work.
Yeah. And that has not changed that much over the last 25 years.
Right.
That according to Gallup. And so it starts with, longest journey starts with the first step, and what can you do to reassess, and if you're one of the people that have quit your job because it wasn't working, and you had a lot of time over the pandemic to think about that, and what now you could do anything. What would you most like to do, and what would you like to try, and how can you explore that and evaluate it? A lot of times your future is the job you got now. You got to just make more of it, and maybe because you can, in your current job, you can move closer to your next job.
Yes.
In the things that you're doing, the things you take on, the discussions you have with your manager, what you like to do. So you don't have to, be somewhere else to reinvent yourself. You can start right now to move in that direction.
Right.
So
to have that vision, right? To have a vision, but you don't always have to know exactly where it's going to go.
Or to explore the vision of what I'd like to try this. Would you support me in taking on this project? Or I think most managers, if you're doing a good job, would support that.
Yeah.
And it depends on how far afield it is from what, but a lot of companies Land's End in Wisconsin, they allow anyone that works there to, if they want to work in a different department, they automatically transfer them. And because they'd rather do that than have them have to leave, and then if they're there 2 weeks, if you want to make it permanent, then they make it permanent,
Wow.
And so there's, or Duke Duke Power, Duke Energy in North Carolina,
Yeah.
they allow anyone to post their job to exchange with anyone else in the company of the same pay grade. Wow, that's pretty progressive to do a professional job swap, and or companies have kind of Epson computer. They allow people to kind of have a internship as an employee to work in a different area, to work at a higher level, a manager's position. And they, in a recent year, 29% of people they had rotated through that type of thing, where they allow them a different perspective in the company, and they went back to the job and had a bigger, broader perspective. So it's like, try something that maybe you'll broaden the horizons for everybody.
You just reminded me of something that I've been hearing a lot particularly from some of my corporate clients, the ones who I work with in, where I've been hired actually by the company, where they're saying, what bothers me? My boss doesn't know what I do. So you've given me some food for thought here. I think I have to give your books out to some people.
Well, you if you have any of your callers want a copy, send me their name and address. I'll send it to them.
We're going to have you back, Dr. Bob. That's all there is to it. This
Anytime.
Has been delightful. I
love what you're doing. I love your upcoming book.
Thank you.
And I think it's as advanced as we are, some of the basics people don't need help with on how to know what your mission is, how to move in that direction, how to get out of the situation you're in. Those are basics that a lot of people
never
don't
get
have
beyond.
They just don't know,
And they allow themselves to be unhappy for a long time, and it's a sad state of affairs, but hopefully
the commute's not that bad, or they rationalize it.
Which is why it's important to try to have fun at work, right?
Absolutely. That provides a whole energy that makes things a little bit more worthwhile.
Absolutely. A lot more worthwhile. So Dr. Bob, if people want to learn more about your work, where can they find you?
Well, I've got my website, www.drbobnelson.com. So DRBOBNELSON.com. I have I've got an online store where all my books are at discounted prices. I get deep discounts from the publisher.
Nice.
And then I've got other services I do in speaking and consulting and
that's great. That's great.
So, but the book's also, it's available wherever books are sold as well. But, in fact, if you do buy it from a bookstore, go to bookshop.org.
There you go. Bookshop.org. Yes. Support your small booksellers.
Exactly.
Yes. I'm a fan. And we will have all of that information in the show notes. I want to thank you so much for being here today. This has been, I'd say so much fun, but it's been so much more than that. So I'll just say thank you.
I've enjoyed it as well, Tammy, and I hope your listeners got something out of it.
I think they did. I think they got a lot. Thank you again.
Take care.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Dr. Bob Nelson. It was so interesting to speak with him about his professional transitions. What is your key takeaway from our interview? If you are interested in any of the resources or links mentioned in today's podcast, you can find them on the blog page of my website at tammygoularloeb.com. Just look for episode 155. Are you thinking about what your next professional move is going to be? Maybe you're feeling just a little stuck. Stay tuned for my new book, Work from the Inside Out, Break Through 9 Common Obstacles to Design a Career That Fulfills You. It'll be available in January 2022 in print and digital ebook editions, and it is now available for pre-order through my website and Amazon. It'll also be available on Barnes & Noble and independent bookstores. If you were inspired by this episode with Dr. Bob, Please share it with your friends and colleagues, and please subscribe so you don't miss next week's show. Remember, subscribing is always free. Are you enjoying the podcast? I'd love to see your review on Apple Podcasts. It's easy to find through my website at tammygoulerloeb.com/podcasts. Just click on the Apple Podcast button and follow the instructions provided there. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. I'd love to hear how it's going for you. Feel free to drop me a line. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.